for joining the Organic Food Safety listening session. I would like to thank you to our sponsor, Organic Center, and please, this Organic Food Safety listening session will be co-moderated by myself. My name is Alda Pires. I'm Extension Specialist for Urban Agriculture and Food Safety, and I'm based at UC Davis. And Ben Diesel is Vice President Quality Assurance from Greenway Farms. So for today, what we'd like is start with overview of the background, the reason why you're doing this listening session. So I'll have a few slides to go over, and then we'd like to have this session the most interactive possible, so with your participation and share with us your concerns. So this listening session is part of a needs assessment study to help organic farmers meet both national organic program standards and third-party food safety requirements. Our goal today is to hear your thoughts on which food safety requirements are the most challenging to synchronize with NEOP standards, which organic farms and farmers are most impacted by this challenge, and how do you think researchers can best direct their scientific studies and efforts to help the organic sector address this challenge. So the project's long-term goal is to direct the research towards finding cost-effective and organic compliant tools that organic farmers can use to mitigate food safety risks and retain third-party certification. This is a study led by Dr. Patrick Bauer in collaboration with a diverse of colleagues, researchers, extension stakeholders, and so on, and is funded by USDA. So your participation, as I mentioned, is essential to guide and help us on this needs assessment. And all these sessions has been recorded, although any information shared here will be summarized and no identification to individual or your affiliation will be shared. We'll keep confidential. So food safety compliance is a major concern for the industry, in particular for specialty crops. Organic farmers, on average, spend over $10,000 on food safety-related expenses, compared to only $2,800 on average for organic certification. Actually, small-scale farmers pay much more compared to their larger-scale counterparts. So organic growers have a higher food safety compliance costs. Sustainable growers like organic farmers pay between 13% to 60% more than their conventional counterparts to implement management practice as inspection, testing, and so on. This was part of a survey done in 2015. Actually, organic growers have higher challenge when trying to apply ecological managed practice such promote biodiversity conservation. And those practices can be seen as a risk for introduction of pathogens and keep those pathogens on the farm. Other risk or with concern is the use of manure or integration of crop livestock on the farm, as well can be a way or pathway of introduction of reservoirs and pathogens on the farm into the soil and potential contamination to the produce. In addition, organic growers cannot use many of the synthetic sanitizing solutions required by food safety inspectors. So food safety requirements or reforms can impair growers' efforts to put in place sustainable practice. For example, there is pressure to remove vegetated habitat near farm fields, and the use of biological soil amendments on animal origin can be seen as a red flag and a concern. So for potential disparities for organic growers, include application of soil amendments of animal origin, reliance on costly chlorinate sanitizing agents for agriculture and wash water, and conservation of biodiversity in the farm environment. So we need more information how the goal of this listening session is part, as I mentioned, of the project to collect information from organic growers to better understand the impacts of disparity between organic certification and third-party food safety requirements. So our long-term goal is to develop research programs to reduce the burden of compliance with multiple regulations and agencies. So to start this discussion, listening session, we have 4 major broad questions that we like to ask to the audience. And the first question is, we'd like to hear from you is, what challenge, if any, have you or the farmers your company sources from, or the farmers your company source from, experience in managing the farm operation to both meet NEOP standards to maintain organic certification and third-party food safety requirements, either for audit, inspection, or certification. This challenge might be practical, affecting your way of operation, or administrative in terms of data operation documents, keep records, and so on. We have Cassandra with the micro, so we would like if you could actually speak with the micro. It'll be easier for the recording and everyone hear your question or comments. And I'll pass the word to Ben, so we will share some of his experience with this challenge. Thank you so much.
I can obviously only speak for my experience. Grimway is an organic grower in primarily Central Valley, California. We grow about 60 different crops. Many of those are leafy greens. So one of the recent challenges we've run into is the LGMA requirements around irrigation water treatment, depending on your water source. As an organic grower, like we said in the slides earlier, you're limited to the materials you can use, you're limited to concentrations you can use. There's a large expense that goes along with some of those chemicals you can use. I'm sure some of you in the room are dealing with the same frustration. I know you guys don't want to listen to me proselytize for 30 minutes, and then all the research is only what I think is important. So, Cassandra has the mic. Anyone who wants to talk about, like I said, irrigation water, issues with proximity to animal operations, that's a big one that's come up recently. Soil amendment issues, anything that you guys think is important and has impacted you in that kind of juxtaposition of food safety and organic certification. Don't be shy, please.
Okay. We're a grower, processor, and handler, and we're having problems trying to determine the consistencies between each of those entities. And secondly, we're perplexed sometimes at what retailers are asking in terms of us to provide in terms of food safety.
So, may I ask a follow-up question? Is there consistency between the retailers, what you ask, or each one will come up with different requirements?
No, each one is different, and some of them make absolutely no sense.
So, by now, I guess. Go ahead.
I think it's a great point, and we're reaching a point where many retailers have their own. You have FSMA with the government. You have potentially LGMA, depending on where you are. You have your third-party certification, and now retailers are kind of adding on. Different retailers have different requirements, and sometimes they're compatible, sometimes they're not. And it's very challenging if you have multiple retailers you're selling to who all want something a little bit differently, or they want to see it exactly the way they're used to seeing it. And if you don't have your paperwork lined out exactly how they expect it, it's a red flag to them. It's definitely a headache and a challenge.
When you mention no sense, what metrics they are based? I think I'm curious to say, what are their reference for those requirements? What those requirements are based in science, are based in recommendations from other entities?
I think basically a lot of the people who are doing the ordering really don't know what they're ordering. So they're asking for the moon. And as I said, a lot of its stuff is not even available, let alone being able to provide it in a format that they're asking for.
So I think we discussed sometime with Ben. I think in terms of, I work for Extension, right? So part of my work, it's extend knowledge to the farmers and general public. So do you think there is a need for some work towards the customers or retailers?
Absolutely. It would be nice if somebody said, these are really what you need, and the consistency between them for the grower, processor, and the handler.
Yeah, and I think, years back with GFSI, we were getting there where it was a consistent level playing field, and now in recent years, we're seeing a lot of additional requirements. You have to have your GFSI certification, but now everyone wants to add on their personal spin that they believe will make it that much safer. And yeah, there's a lot of requirements that don't necessarily make sense to the person who's boots on the ground doing the work, and has been for years.
If I could make a general comment about the food safety issues, and I think it goes back to food safety being really a microbiology. It's rooted in science of microbiology. And because microbiology is not visible to most of us, we have to use microscopes and certain instruments, etc., in order to convince ourselves that microbes are really there and they're really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's pretty well they're mixed up with everything in life, everything on Earth. And food safety often, or 99% of the time, is rooted in the pathogens, which are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. So for us who are in the food production industry or in the supply of the inputs, it becomes very important that our systems, the systems that we have developed for our companies, are very much rooted in that microbiology side of things. And what people don't understand in general population is that cross-contamination is a very significant issue with your food safety program. So you can have the best food safety program in the world, but if after that critical control point or the kill step in that process, if you don't have a good, robust system for preventing cross-contamination, you're gonna wipe out everything you've done in your system by using, say, in our case, raw material side processing equipment on the finished product side processing equipment. So that's one thing to watch out for in the production of inputs side of things. There also is a big difference between inspecting a field operation of leafy greens, for example, and the environmental factors that come into play in that situation that can contaminate your field, basically your leafy greens. So in that case, you have a different set of factors that are important in preventing that contamination to begin with. And then you have the processing plant. When those leafy greens go into the processing plant, there is lots of different ways of danger of that cross-contamination and just spreading the particular pathogen throughout the whole operation. So all of that is rooted in microbiology. So some of these companies, and everybody's freaked out. Nobody wants to be the company that has that's killed the last customer or had the contamination in their own, E. coli 15787, salmonella, or any host of these organisms. So what has to happen somewhere along the way in this system is the education about the microbiology has to be realistic, and some of these packers and shippers, etc., they usually don't understand it, so they freak out. They just don't want to be the company that's the last one that contaminated supply. So that education is very important, and it's very difficult to reach the masses, because unless you've had the education in microbiology and actually looked at the microscope and looked at the different organisms, their characteristics and what they do, how they contaminate, what's their process of getting into the victim's system and affecting their health, it's difficult to understand that. So out of the abundance of caution, they just freak out, and they don't want to have anything to do with anything that might even look or smell or appear to be exposed to contamination. So that's the biggest issue in this whole food safety scenario.
I have a comment. So I have a follow-up, or kind of thank you for your comment. So what I hear is, either we are focused very much on microbiology and the pathogen and are concerned that people cannot see it, but that's integrate in a very complex system that's the farm, that's your environmental, that depends, California, Arizona, and so on. And there's many different factors. And besides, those factors affect the potential risk, we need to have a better way to communicate that there is no zero risk, but there is control points on the farm. So my question is, do you think models or predictive models for the farmer use as input? For example, if I have a very wet winter, etc., what should my precautions for when I'm harvesting? Do you think those kind of tools would be useful, not just for the farmer, but also for educate the other, the retailers and so on? I don't know if I was clear, but.
Anybody else wants to comment? I don't want to talk.
So that's a question for general, either one.
Generally speaking, each situation is specific to that particular organization, and there within lies the difficulty in having one system fits all. So it's very important for the sectors of the food industry to hire people who have been educated in the microbiology, at least the very basics of microbiology. I know microbiologists can't be hired everywhere for everything, but there's consulting companies. There are research labs that provide these services. So it's very important that that organization really understands the nuts and bolts of their particular situation and be aware of the potential vulnerabilities in that system. And then they have to train their staff, because a microbiologist in some organization of, I don't know, hundreds of even 20 employees can't be at every point in the process. So their staff has to be educated, and that education system has to be very simplified, so that those people understand that if they use a contaminated piece of equipment to handle the finished product, that in itself, just that simple act, it'll jeopardize, it will jeopardize the whole system. So
thank you.
It's not an easy thing, but it's.
Morning. Thank you both for conducting this session this morning. When you talk about food safety in our industry, and go back to 1997 when the spinach outbreak and everything that was taking place, that was probably the start of our industry's commitment to food safety. and I'm talking from the grower side, the processing side, and the retail food service and club side. The standards that were set there by the food safety educated PhDs and microbiologists in the majority of the grower shippers in California and the state of Arizona have stepped up. As an industry, we have spent millions, I mean millions of dollars at every single step, from the seed to the planting, to the harvesting, to cleaning the equipment at the field before it's transferred to another field so it doesn't carry the different pathogens onward to another field. The receiving at the raw material at processing facilities, the numbers of checks that are done randomly in the field as well as in the plants. The amount of requirements that we're facing as an industry is costing thousands and millions of dollars annually because this industry is committed to that. So once it gets out of the chain of, once the product is completed being packaged in the processing facility or harvested out of a field, if it's a bulk facility and there's a requirement from a customer for random testing of these lots, another step that's been added in recently, which is a substantial cost to any producer or shipper. Once it leaves your facility and is in transportation, again, these trucks are tested, they're swabbed for different pathogens or any type of micro disease, or it's not the right word for it, but another step that is put in there. Now we're being hit with, as growers, to have certain amount of miles away from any type of livestock. Well, some retailer who's sitting on the East Coast or in the Midwest or in Canada has no idea the amount of land that is taken from the production of agriculture. It's not like we take it out of production, we can just, not make revenue off of it. It increases our overall cost, reduces our revenues. Can we do a price increase to that customer that's demanding that? No, they won't accept a price increase. But as a company, we have to invest in that. The point being is this: yes, there's a lot of requirements coming from very different type of retail, wholesale, or club accounts or food service accounts. And these individuals have no idea what we do as an industry invest in it, because we're the last group that wants to be responsible for a death from E. coli. Any E. coli that has taken place since 1997, you trace it back to the block, to the field, to the processing plant, and there's no trace of it. None. Well, is this fail-safe? No, it's not. But do we have the documentation? You're damn right we do. Because the FDA requires it, the customer requires it, LGMA requires it, and as a company, you require it, because you don't want to be exposed to a lawsuit when it comes back your way. My point being is this: you mentioned something, Ben, when, Grimway, with the 50 crops that you grow and you're dealing with the different water scenarios, what are you faced with? What are you dealing with, and how is the solution to come up to take care and kill those pathogens within the water? But to conclude, I respect what this gentleman is saying, but I will tell you something. Our industry is not sitting back without microbiologists in these companies. There's not one company that I deal with within any state, from the Midwest to the Northeast to Florida, that is not invested in the science and technology and very certified PhDs protecting our industry. But back to my question, what are you doing for the water testing? I mean, it's not an easy solution.
It's not. It's been very challenging. So for us, we had to look at our water sources and our water delivery systems across, 70 different ranches with multiple blocks. And your questions are, okay, typically our water delivery is overhead sprinkler. So that puts you in a higher risk category. So you got to look, does it make sense to switch to drip? Do your farmers, are they good at farming with drip? It's, it all works differently. There's costs associated with switching over to drip. If you're not doing that, can you replumb your water system? So you're going straight from a well. You may not have the water capacity, depending on how big your irrigation set is. And again, there's huge cost with running new, underground main line. So, where we have been able to change our type B water to type A, we have done that. There's some places we grow in Imperial, and all that is coming from a canal. There's nothing we can do, so we're treating it. And then you get into the question of what are you going to use to treat it, because obviously it has to be organic compatible. So chlorine is the most cost effective, but chlorine is also, you got very tight controls you need over it, between pH controls and also just what your final concentration can be to still be compliant with organic rules. So then you look, what are our other options? Well, you can use parasitic acid, but that's really expensive. And we've found solutions to kind of get by, but I don't think that I would say we've found a great cost-effective, it always works, it's always perfect solution. I don't know that there is one. It's your incoming water quality is going to impact your treatment method so much, and a lot of that stuff, it's you're pulling water samples, you're getting results back a few days later, so you don't have any kind of real-time feedback loop to know what I'm doing right now, is it working right now? You find out 2 days later, hey, it worked, perfect. But if you find out you had an issue, then you're scrambling. You're in that 21-day pre-harvest interval, and are you pushing harvest back, or are you doing pre-harvest testing on your crop? I understand the reason behind it, but it really does complicate
With the drought that's currently taking place, impact on your water quality, are you increasing your kill step? I mean, how are you dealing with that?
We are, again, it's gonna vary based off of where you're pulling your water from. But as a general rule, we're seeing more treatment usage, more chemical usage, upping the concentration where we can. Yeah. And I think, to kind of riff off a point you made about land and proximity to animal operations and how you can't just pick up your farm and move it. That's something that a challenge that faces, that conventional growers face as well. But I think for an organic grower, it's even more difficult because I'm thinking of some of our farmland that is within a mile of an animal operation. Mm-hmm. It's land that we've been cultivating for decades. And even if we're going to say you have unlimited resources, unlimited land, unlimited money, you're going to move somewhere else. Well, you still got 3 years before you can transition that to organic. You can't just start tomorrow on a new block of land. So, again, that's a challenge everyone faces, but I think for organic, it really hits us a lot harder because it's ground we've been babying for so long.
And it's an expense you can't pass on.
No,
that the person
absolutely.
Sitting in the procurement department for a large corporation has no clue.
Absolutely.
The capital cost, the cost of the lost production, and impacting your overall bottom line, and they don't accept price increases.
Right.
We all deal with it daily. We know,
right.
Especially when we're challenged to continue to invest in more food safety, and don't pass that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There's another question there.
So I have a question for Dr. Alda. I'm curious, are you doing this research study or part of this research study because you believe that all of this feedback can actually, change behavior at the buyer retailer level? Because it seems like everyone's talking about, getting the buyer to realize everything that the growers are going through, but yet every buyer has their own way of doing things. In our industry, in IT consulting services, we just bring customers together, right? And we say, let's all talk about it together. So if there's a way for your research to take all this feedback and create some forum or something where you bring all the different buyers together so that they can hear from the growers and help them understand, for example, Mr. Customer, one of you is asking for a 3-point seat belt, the next one's asking for a 6-point seat belt, someone else is asking for, double airbags. We can't build, nobody builds cars that way, right? There's one standard that we all agree on. And you guys need to come up with that list of standards.
So I'm collaborating with Dr. Bauer on his grant. This is called a planning grant. So basically it's to have feedback, the different industry and growers and so on, and try to identify what's the priority for the industry where we can propose a bigger grant next cycle. So it's kind of, we call a white paper, where is the state of the needs and the challenge, and then we'll target our efforts. We're doing this listening session across the United States, several organic conferences. So that's the goal, see the trends and what's the teams that show up in all, in the different listening sessions, and then get that information, how we can get the team to address. I recognize, at least on my side and some of the colleagues involved, so we have colleagues involved more on the policy side, we have colleagues more on the farm, and so on. But we see, consumer side and when the product left the farm and so on, it seems a very common aspect we hear from the different listening sessions. So basically, yes, try to see the trends, and then what we can build up a team and try to address those.
You're going to hold it for me, but you give it to the other people. Okay. We grow organic pistachios, so we're sort of at a total different level of concern of you guys that are out in the fields doing your stuff. We also grow at altitude, so we don't have insect pressure. They don't survive because we have real winters, and we don't have insect pressure because we're low humidity for mold and mildew. So it would really be nice if you could create something like an encyclopedia is crop specific, that, okay, these are the things you need to look for this particular crop. So, our problems in terms of mitigating these things are fairly minor, but we still have to fill out the same paperwork.
And so I guess we'll go to question 2, I believe already address some of the things on the question 2. So how do you challenge relate to simultaneously managing for both food safety and organic certification negatively impact farm operations? So it come here part of the costs to put in practice some of these requirements. Any other, we did talk about the cost of the land and treatments. Any other concerns or aspects you like to bring? We did talk about marketing.
Well, the challenge is you're trying to force a chemical solution off into a biological system. And there has to be acknowledgement this is a biological system. And you can't expect a chemical complete sanitary thing. If you do, you negate the whole reason we're in business. So if you want to hear something, that's what you need to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think to that point, it's the difference on biodiversity, right? The organic, obviously, we are striving for as much biodiversity as we can get, and that's part of our audit. That's something we have to prove every year when the auditors come out. Food safety, and I think especially as you get into some of the retailer-specific stuff, they're very, very scared of biodiversity, and they want more of a, as people say, a scorched earth policy. Get rid of any natural habitat anywhere near your fields. Sterilize your soil, and like you said, that's completely opposite to what we've all been working for.
Yeah, while simultaneously showing how you promote biodiversity.
Exactly, exactly.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Lombardo, and I'm the Executive Director for the Farmer Veteran Coalition. And we have about 33,000 farmers across the United States that are transitioning out of the military and either starting, beginning farming and ranching programs. And so this whole process is very complex, and and as well as costly. And we do have some grants that help to offset some of those costs. And as the growers move through the process, they become more involved in this. But I need to understand more the programs that are available for this, and maybe that's a conversation we have off of this. But everything I've listed up there, economic costs, personnel management. It seems like there should be more of a tiered level as far as they grow and go up to the next tier, that it's as far as the complexity and the cost. But I have not seen anything like that. I've always been, I'm going to be honest, conventional grower. This is my first dive into organics, so this is probably something everyone else in the room knows but me. But maybe we could talk afterwards on that.
There's
Cassandra with some.
No.
Sorry.
We're going to start calling on people.
Yeah, so I just have more of a comment, but back to the different. I've been managing water for 32 years, and something that Ben was talking about, all these different water supplies, water sources. When I have somebody on the East Coast telling me how to treat my water without doing any diagnostics or any analytics, and they're saying, we need you to use X, it's hard for me to swallow. Water science and water chemistry is a proven methodology, but it's like going to the doctor and having the doctor take a look at you and say, yeah, I'm pretty sure you got this. So we're going to give penicillin to everyone that gets sick, right? Just can't happen. So there is science, but to say that there's a silver bullet, and I think that was kind of your point. There's not a silver bullet to this stuff, and so there has to be some analytics, some diagnostics, like you said, an evaluation, a spreadsheet that says if I had to invest into micro irrigation versus solid set overhead, what does that cost me? Because there are these other costs that we can't get away from. And, when it comes to the feedlots and all this other stuff, we just can't get away from them. But like you said, for someone on the outside to even understand the amount of dollars that have gone into that property, the years and years of cultivation and investment, it's frustrating, but it is what we have to deal with. So, but just back to the water part, there are no silver bullets. There is science and chemistry that come into play. And I think that as our industry evolves, the technology is there, but it's not just buying a drum of chlorine and hooking it up.
So may I make a comment or see if I understood? So what you're saying that one single metric just based on diagnostics is not helping the farmers because does not account what the limitations to implement. So something like a cost benefit about we have these parameters or metrics, how much will cost me to implement, treating, changing my irrigation, something like that will be very useful, specific for water quality.
Yeah, well, and so, just knowing the geographics around Grimway, you've got multiple water districts. Some of them are treated, some of them aren't treated. You've got well water. You've got all these different factors that the analytics and the diagnostics are going to help you try to determine what would be the best choice, and then economics become a big factor. You know, there are certain, I mean, we can do anything chemically if money's not an issue, right? We can build a water treatment plant. You know, we can put a desal plant. We can do whatever, but money is a factor because that cost is so hard to pass on. Almost impossible.
So I guess easy tools for the farmers in terms of cost benefit, all these interventions, either it'll be away, you know, the farm animals and so on, how much will cost to implement will be something of interest of industry.
Yeah, well, and the variables are really unlimited.
I know, because it's very complex systems.
Water source, reservoir, canal, there's no way that we can control that. So we have to do what we can do to mitigate. And part of that comes, you know, water treatment's been going on forever. It's kind of slowly merged in my career. So water treatment's been going on forever. The science is there, but it's merging slowly into the agronomic, you know, businesses, and it's because of water supply, water quality, and all these different factors. But anyway, I think the silver bullets were really what got me, because if somebody's back here saying if you just run chlorine at X amount of parts per million, it's going to solve your problems, it's just not, it's not true.
Right.
Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly say to the veteran lady, CCOF works real hard to help small growers. There's lots and lots and lots of programs and help to get them going.
So I just want to go back to biodiversity and sterilize. Do you think we need more knowledge? We talk about biodiversity or the soil health and how that interacts with the pathogen, and we try to build, you know, sustainable, diverse. Do you think we need more knowledge, or I don't know, if more information, how actually those practices are effective to promote that biodiversity at the same time suppress those pathogens?
So there's been some research that's been done on looking at biodiversity on the farm, and with the guidelines coming down from the buyers now, right? It's kind of scorched earth policy. We treat the water, no riparian habitat, no grassline ditches, no compost, because we're afraid of the inputs that we're putting in our soil. But we need to look at what does that biological system do with the pathogens in our environment, because there is research that's out there that does show the more biodiversity that you have on your farm with the grassline ditches, the more compost that's filling the ecological niches in the soil, so the more good bugs that you have in your environment are able to outcompete the bad bugs. So it's just like in our human body, where if we do take penicillin, we're knocking out our good bugs also, so then we have secondary problems that go on along with taking antibiotics. So if we could somehow bring it all together and incorporate food safety with incorporating biological diversity on the farm, I think we would be a lot better off. But we don't have that concentrated research going on, I don't think, right now. I think there is some, but we need more. And on growers' ranches. So we're doing real world research
on farms.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads into the third question we have, but I think everyone in this room, right, has kind of anecdotal stories about, you know, research they've done, research they've seen, saying exactly what you're saying, that increased biodiversity decreases pathogens. But I agree, I think we need a good data set that's kind of, we can hold up and say, hey, you know, we're safe.
And not be afraid to run research.
Yeah,
but have support from the food safety industry.
Yes.
To run research.
Yes.
Okay, so I was told that we have 5 minutes a while ago, so just one, I'm not sure how many minutes I still have. So I think we addressed most of these, and I was just see what are your final thoughts. What other tools or technologies or scientific evidence or technical support? We did address some of these. There is anything else that you would like to share with us regarding this type of support we can potentially develop?
As an industry, when you look at the WGA or United PMA coming together, how we work with the USDA and the FDA, et cetera, and different universities throughout the United States, I think as a goal in each one of these organizations, we use it for supply chain all the time. We have transportation issues or other type import issues or export issues. They put committees together and they address these issues. Now, why can't we get these organizations to focus in on exactly what you're talking about? Because we're all investing in white papers and research, et cetera. And if we could just put all that together as an industry to educate the consumers as well as the different procurement bodies throughout our industry, we'd be, dollars ahead, because you're going to educate them what we're committed to, what we're doing, and how we're going to address these food safety issues with this research that we have in different areas of the country that we're not utilizing because we're not pulling the resources together. So that's my challenge to the Organic Association to let's get all these organizations where we're spending a lot of money to do things for us in Washington, D.C. or other state or local governments with these regulations and use it to our advantage.
Thank you. So with that, I think that where do you prioritize what we discussed? You just mentioned you bring together different efforts and try to speak the same language across different industries or parts of industry. Anything else that you think you should be a priority that we discussed today, or any other thoughts?
Help the buyer go through a transformational change.
Easy, right?
That's the top priority, right?
Absolutely.
Front and center with FSMA is subordinate to organic. Wherever there's a contradiction, it's written in the law, organic trumps FSMA, okay? And I have to bring that up all the time to inspectors. I think what would be very valuable would be to have an organic university for anyone that wants to inspect an organic farm. They spend a week. They need to understand the holistic nature of an organic farm. And if you don't have that training, you can't be a certifier. We have somebody that was a checker at Walmart last week coming out to tell us how to run our farm, and they know this much about one little thing, and everything else has to revolve around that one little thing. Why don't we have if you want to inspect us, go find out what we do, we'll put it on, we'll do it through Rodale, we'll do it through CCOF, we'll get it done. And now come out and understand and be our partner in making food safe, rather than coming out and if your only tool's a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
So are you saying we'll have like a working farm, organic farm that could use as educational? I have to say, so with this UCNR, so University of California, we have different centers with organic where they conduct research. And we just have funded the first Organic California Institute associated with CNR. So hopefully we'll see more, those initiatives coming along as we build up on this institute. So it's brand new, the Institute, Organic Institute within University of California. We have another comment?
Yeah. I would say in terms of moving forward, I think it's an important priority to work with the different commodity groups directly. I think we all have vastly different challenges. Coming from perennials, we undergo the exact same scrutiny that a lot of you guys do in row crops, but we don't have the same amount of risks. And so it's a little bit challenging to go from a system where we've never been concerned about food safety for compost and irrigation when we're harvesting a crop that's hanging in the air, or going through sanitation, going through washing, waxing, and still being held to the same standard.
Okay. Thank you. And we have to end the session. I really appreciate everyone feedback. I'll be around if you have any comments, or email me. I don't have here, but it's apierce@UC Davis. If you like, talk more or any other suggestions, we appreciate. Thank you so much for attending this session.